We got more routes which we want to add. A patch route that allows us to update a place by ID, and a delete route that helps us delete a place. So let's work on those now. Of course, as always, feel free to try this on your own first. There are some things, some HTTP verbs at least involved, which we haven't used before. But in general, you should have everything you need to make this work as well. So definitely try this on your own first. Here's a quick pause, which you have to pause the video and try it. Thereafter, we'll implement this together. So, were you successful? Let's implement this together now. For that, let's go to Places Routes and register two new routes. One for the patch HTTP method for /someplaceID. And by the way, this does not clash with this route because this only is interested in GET requests. This is only interested in patch requests. So the order does not matter, and the fact that they have the same path does also not matter. We would have a clash if we had another GET route with the same path here. This would never be reached. But since we have a different method, this is no problem. And then we want to point at some controller function. Before we add that, however, let me also already register a delete route also for /someID. Now in the Places controller, we can add two new functions. Update place by ID could be one function where we get our response, our request, our response, and the next function, and then delete place. And I'll actually get rid of that by ID thing because we have no other way of deleting or updating anyways. So these are my two middleware functions. Now we need to export them here. So export update place and point at the update place function, and export delete place and point at the delete place function. And now in Places Routes, we can use that. Places controller, update place, and Places controller delete place. So we're done in the routing file. Now we have to work in the controller file. Now, for updating, there are a couple of things we gotta do. For one, it's important to know that for a patch request, you also have a request body. And that's important because since we want to update certain fields, the data for those fields, of course, needs to be attached to the request. So I will copy that extraction here from create place and add it to update place. However, here I only want to allow updating the title and description. So I'll only extract that. Other data can be sent, but will not be considered. We also need the ID of the place which should be updated, and that is encoded in the URL. So here we have a mixture of some data being part of the URL and some data being part of the request body. And you typically encode the identifying criteria, so the ID in this case, into the URL, and the data with which you then work into the request body. So now to get that place ID, we get it from request perms PID, or whatever you chose as a segment here. Of course, if you choose PID here, you have to use PID here. If you chose a different name in the route setup, you have to extract your data by that name here. So now with that, we can search for the place in our dummy places array with the find method, and find the place where the ID is equal to place ID. And here I'm using the shorter form of that arrow function, where if we only have one expression and we want to return the value of that expression, we can omit the curly braces and the return statement, and this will then automatically be returned. So this is the shortest possible form of writing this. So here I'm identifying a place, and now we can update it. Now I actually want to update it in an immutable way, which means I don't want to start working on the properties of the place like this, because that would immediately change it here in this array, because objects are reference values in JavaScript. In case that doesn't tell you anything, attached you find an extra resource on reference versus primitive values in JavaScript. Now, it wouldn't be horrible if we directly added this, but it's also not a great practice. Because if saving our data or saving parts of our data would fail thereafter, which it can't really here, but if we would also store a file or something like that, then some data might have changed already whilst other data failed. So I actually want to create a copy of that place, change that copy, and only once that copy is finished, I want to change the entire place in my array of places with that updated copy. So therefore, to create a copy, I'll use the spread operator here and wrap this in curly braces. This creates a new object and copies all key value pairs of the old object as key value pairs into the new object. Then I'm interested in the place index in the array. We can get this with dummy places find index. Same logic as before, but this returns us the index of the place instead of the place itself. And then I want to update my updated place object here, set the title to the title I got here in the request body, and also set the description to the description I got in the request body. Now you might be wondering why I'm able to change a constant here. Well, again, check that attached resource on primitive and reference values and it will become clear. Basically, the constant stores the address of the object and not the object itself. So now we got the updated place, we got the index of the place. Now I can set dummy places for the identified index equal to the updated place. So I replace the old object at that index with the new updated place. And then we can send a response. Status code 200, not 201 because we didn't create anything new. And there we could add a message if we wanted to, but here I just want to add the place. I want to return the updated place to be precise. And this should be a valid updating middleware. Let's test it. Let's save this and go to Postman. And there, of course, we have our places P1 place, right? If we send that request, that gives us the Empire State Building, which is never lost when we restart the server because it's hard-coded in our code up there. Now let's change something about that place by creating a new request, a patch request, where we target localhost 5000/API/places/P1. That's the ID of the place we want to add it. And then on body, choose raw, choose JSON, and in there, set a title property because we are expecting a title and a description property, and then a value of your choice, Empire State of Mind, and a description, a pretty great song. Now if you hit send, let's see if that works. Looks pretty good. I got my updated place back. I got a 200 status code. And if I now try to find that place here with my GET request, I also see the changes reflected there. So I successfully changed this. Now, just as with creating data, whenever we restart the server, this will be lost. But for the moment, this is great. Now let's also make sure we can delete a place.